Hi, this is Chris Berthelsen. Thank you for this great opportunity to join the October meeting of the Planetary Crisis and Local Change Group.
Today, I'd like to briefly introduce some things made by non-specialists that we found in the streets of Tokyo over 5 years of exploring the mega region. I refer to these things as the results of doing stuff with stuff to improve everyday life and the general environment. They are examples of what my colleague Xin Cheng calls everyday resourcefulness, which is making by non-specialists the production of material things as a part of everyday living. This includes small modifications of existing things and spaces, adapting an artifact to new uses, and the repair of things that have been broken or altered through use. I will then briefly share the lens of small spaces of anarchy, which I use to understand these creations. Then, I'll present one of the ways we are exploring and using this understanding in the form of alternative education projects. I'll focus on the activities of the Negative Emissions and Waste Studies Program, or NEWS program for short, which is the umbrella term for these projects. I hope that this short talk can be of use and interest in the context of Christoph and Max's inspiring work, and I look forward to the discussion that follows. First, I would like to note that, very simply, we view creative activity as a product of a process that occurs within a person, but of course not just people, all kinds of stuff, living and otherwise, in a place. When occurring at the porous public-private boundary in the streets and neighborhoods of our cities, this doing stuff with stuff results in physical traces, or engrams, which are cognitive information imprinted in a physical substance, which remain in the environment and change over time. When people start to make stuff outside of their houses, in the liminal and public spaces of their general environment, it's as if they have taken up Paul Auster's great advice to pick one spot in the city and begin to think of it as yours. It doesn't matter where, and it doesn't matter what. Humane use of cities is messy and spontaneous, but it is also a creative response to the built environment. It's a reflection of personality, livelihoods, society, culture, and traditions. As Peter Wilshire and Rosemary Reiter note in their book, Exploding Cities, it is important to understand these unintended user contributions to urban order, because this is a potentially revolutionary aspect of the city's structure. The general organization of urban life must develop more sensitivity to the arbitrariness of human use of the city as an object, or that arbitrariness will coalesce into revolt. They say that these lifestyles must be given more breathing space. So, perhaps the most powerful way for people to improve their environments is to devolve control to those that have the stake, knowledge, and ability to do so. If that's the case, we will then feel the joy of a more lovingly made world, rather than the mere pleasure of consumption. Creative use of the general environment leaves traces and fragments and remnants that layer up and decay over time. These traces are fine-grained evidence of life, humane scale attachment, action and care, affection and love and pride, and of course ordinary magic. They are like scattered oases, tacitly accepted, actively protected, ignored, or begrudgingly left alone. We can refer to these as small spaces of anarchy, which is an idea I modified from Muhammad Bamye's book, Anarchy as Order. These spaces are zones of humane scale action, attachment and care that can replace state control with regards to an aspect of city life. They can take away that aspect from the requirement of majority rule, and they can promote unimposed order as a style of working. People and stuff will adjust their use in indirect collaboration to fit with that of other users of the spaces through the medium of a slow and steady work in progress. This can be understood as a process of stigmergy. This helps us realize that it is possible for slim segments of the population to generate their own environments in scattered ways over a vast metroscape like Tokyo. What emerges is a city of unimposed order, consisting of communal self-determination on the one hand and individual freedom on the other. In our field work, which I'll show you a bit of soon, we walked and talked, imagined, hallucinated, napped, snacked, bathed, drank some 1 cup sake, had to sit down and felt sad about the whole situation, and more. We soaked ourselves in wire, duct tape, plastic twine, string, laminated paper, sellotape, wood, breeze blocks, bricks, rope, hooks, pet bottles, pots, electrical tape, railings, plastic bamboo poles, netting, plastic sheets that smell like cat urine, traffic cones, rusty bicycles, and poo, at least. To be brief, we found that it takes a lot of junk to hold together a mega region. So, let's take a look at a few normal, not exceptional, examples to get an idea of what I am talking about. A surveillance system made of wire, webcam, fake bamboo gardening stake, tape, power pole, whatever, all hooked up inside that guy or lady's balcony. To keep the crows and other animals from creating chaos in the public park, people may create a bin protector of vegetable trays, cut open and put back together with wire ties. Of course, when there is a leaky roof in a train station, it needs to be addressed immediately in an appropriate fashion. So in that case, you may well need some plastic sheeting and some tape and some tubes and some PET bottles that you got from the recycling bin, etc. If you live next to a public pathway which has not been designed to give you clean access to your own residence, you may want to pile up a few concrete blocks to give you a bit of a step up and over to your place of dwelling. You may even want to concrete them together to make it more stable. I am sure that no one will mind. A very influential design artifact is this bird feeder made of fake bamboo garden stake, an ashtray, various wire, and fruit fallen from a nearby tree that was outside a family-owned bakery which had operated for 50 years in the suburbs of Tokyo. Another influential service is an informal florist shop which has been made of milk cartons, shopping basket, some string, and flowers picked from the proprietor's garden, all for 100 yen. This is a great opportunity for you to bring something home to your family or friends or loved ones. I recommend it in Kokubunji. If you are in need of extra gardening space, just make it with scrap corrugated iron, steel stakes, and wire. You can get it all for free. You may need to buy some paint if you want to match your house. If you are a senior citizen, but you are sick of gate ball or hanging out at the Ximing Kaikang or anything like that, you may want to gather a group of friends who feel the same way, get some brooms, and make the local park nice and smooth. Then you might want to dig some holes and put some tin cans in them, and then make little tops so they don't get filled with water, and turn your local park into a mini golf arena. You can hide all of your stuff in a little steel garage that you buy from the local home center on the side of the park, and put everything away when you're not in use. This is a very impressive facility. Of course, if something that you've planted has become wildly overgrown, or you find something that is wildly overgrown but quite great, instead of cutting it away, just use some packing string to create a living bouquet. How delightful. If you would like to make some more friends that aren't human, perhaps you could make a cafe for cats, made of old umbrella, some garden stakes, twist ties, concrete block, maybe some cat biscuits that were offered up as a sample for free from the local pharmacy or supermarket. You'll make friends which are strays and domesticated and whatever. You might even get some dogs or other animals. It's quite a great experiment. And yes, things will creep out and enjoy themselves without you doing anything. Just leave them with a little bit of space. And when you're sick of paying rent in your mass-produced and industrial rental unit or whatever you happen to be living in, you might want to just make a village of refrigerators topped with tree stumps, etc., or whatever, in a public park. Or you may want to go to the riverside and put up a sign that tries to prevent outsiders from coming in while you make a lovely dwelling in the bush. As well as walking aimlessly like a butterfly collector around the streets of Tokyo, I also investigated specific sites of interest, such as a mass-produced housing complex in Suginami-ku. And I wondered what elements of the human hand could be found in the non-place and transitory environment of mass-made toilets in train stations around the Tokyo region. During this process, we found that the sites of everyday resourcefulness are rich, surprising, and scattered. Walls, curbs, balconies, car parks, train stations, public parks, inherited property, public toilets, and green sleeping spots, vacant lots, dog turd trouble spots, and ad hoc ashtrays. As residents traverse their city from their dwelling to its surrounds, to the neighborhood, to parks, public spaces, and family sites, and further into suburbs and the wider city, they appropriate their small spaces with frugal creations and scattered locations. The city can thus be experienced as a continual accretion of fine-grained activity and actions in diverse sites as physical manifestations of the fragments of individual knowledge of the city. Historically, Tokyo and its residents are comfortable with working over scattered locations. The city has a soil which has been fragmented by multiple generations of land division, addition and transfer into a field of scattered, unconnected plots which can be under the same ownership. Inheritance tax and regulation has fueled subdivision further to the point where large plots have been reduced to fractions of their original size in the space of just 3 generations. And politically, Tokyo can be viewed as an assemblage of disparate and independent administrative blocks with an amorphous solidarity. The personal impacts of resident appropriations range over time from long-term to immediate reward, and function from the practical to the emotional to the magical. Examples include social norms, traditions, memories, communities, affordability, practicality, shade, food, beauty, mutual dependence like a pet or a child, and just frugal pleasure like the scent and the taste. These diverse personal impacts help us remember that this kind of design is not just about materials and tinkering and hacking, but also about well-being, love, relationships, play, and building a feel of place and love. As I said, I often use the term doing stuff with stuff to refer to this kind of thinking that we can touch, take apart, and leave around. Xing Qian influenced me with her definition of everyday resourcefulness that I mentioned earlier. This kind of making also aligns with appropriate technologies, which are affordable, easy to maintain, compatible with existing infrastructure, efficient in the use of scarce natural resources, environmentally benign, and partial to the small scale. Thank you to Angus Campbell for putting me onto that definition. Uta Brandes and her colleagues coined the term non-intentional design to refer to the ways that people use things for purposes other than their intended function. This implies a norm-defying, cost-cutting, waste-reducing, temporary and playful approach that everyday users may have towards design products. And in the same vein, Wakari and Maestri refer to this activity as everyday design, which is characterized by resourcefulness, adaptation, and emergence, and it shifts an understanding of design away from what design things can do for you to what can be done with designed things. Of course, there are plenty of other similar concepts, such as bricolage, patchwork, meshwork, hacking, etc. This way of thinking fits with theories of design as a generative process of dealing with mess. For example, design information, seams and scars for collaboration, and seamful design for appropriation. This is a dynamic and knowledge-generating view of design, which regards the unknown as essential. As I mentioned earlier, we understand these kinds of creations as cracking open small spaces of anarchy, which are zones of human-scale action, attachment, and care that can replace state control with regards to an aspect of city life, take away that aspect from the requirement of majority rule, and promote unimposed order as a style of working. Such spaces exist tacitly accepted, actively protected, or under the radar, but are obviously not the whole of society. Further, their creators are not activists or heroes or anarchists, but normal people, as cultivators of stuff. This is because anarchy is just a normal tendency in voluntary organized social life. So, recognizing small spaces of anarchy bends our orientation towards negotiated and uncertain coexistence, where realistic outcomes are like mosaics of perspectives. Sennett views this kind of anarchy as a loss of omnipotence, which is the genesis of real strength and the base for action in terms of caring about. Caring about is a curiosity,
which supposes that the strength of affection grows stronger the more each individual develops their uniqueness, as there is more to care about and more to explore. Anarchy is thus not that of the isolation of the individual, but a deepening of possible encounters. In small spaces of anarchy, space becomes tools that make it possible for everyday city life, where work does not remain in the domestic world of the workshop, as Heidegger might say, but enters a public meshwork, in Ingold's terms. And this is where life emerges as a common and negotiated experiment, a life that is felt and engaged, rather than delegated and abstracted. So, what is the point? Of course, there are many points, but what I would like to focus on today is how we are taking all this butterfly collecting type of field work and observation and using it not just to describe things or show things or analyze things, but as the basis for alternative education programs where we can raise awareness of the pleasure of making with stuff and help people to remember or redevelop their capability to work in this way. So the news program is a free self-learning environment that is run on streets, parks, private homes, community centers, stylish art galleries, high-end department stores, public schools, in the sea, and anywhere else. It was co-founded by me and Adam Bendroa, an artist and designer who currently teaches design at Victoria University of Wellington in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We do not necessarily develop fixed designs for these learning environments, and their design and operation will depend on the context. But as a general guideline, we do keep in mind basic creativity frameworks, such as individual components of creativity, like intrinsic motivation, creativity-specific skills, and domain-relevant knowledge. And we recognize that the creative climate, with dimensions such as risk tolerance, debate, playfulness, and humor, and so on, will have a significant influence on intrinsic motivation. This program only uses things that have been thrown away or can be found for free in the general environment. We then play and experiment with them to make fun, pleasurable, and sometimes useful objects, services, activities, etc. And this occurs in multiple domains, including, but not limited to, electronics, sewing, ceramics, sound and music, micromobility, gaming, landscaping, food and drink, poetry, and love. We also store and distribute materials to people and groups engaged in creative activities and research in the cities we operate in. This great photo is from the visit of the artist Java Bentley, who came to our Negative Waste Creativity Centre at a local school. This is part of our program that we are working on developing with the New Zealand Ministry of Education. And related to this project in local schools is the development of a network between the art community and recycling centres in our city. This is being done with the art group Tardigrade World. Another core activity is free and open to anyone feasts in public and private spaces with furniture that has been made from whatever we can find around the place. In this case, we were next to a gasoline station and mechanic shop, so we were able to borrow the tires and other bits and pieces to create a lovely spot for an afternoon picnic.
We are also very excited to take over private homes in real estate hotspots and luxury areas in our city and build unlikely equipment weird musical instruments, shelters and cooking devices which may or not work with just the stuff we find, and we don't care if it actually is efficient, but we can enjoy it and laugh and draw people in, and then we can keep going and see what happens. It is also possible to start from the raw materials. So in the Alternative Clay Learning Spaces program that we developed with Jack Tilson, we gathered clay from all across the city, not by digging it up or specifically looking for it, but going to landslides, cliff slides, construction sites, places where companies and industrial actors had deposited waste sites of clay, and then taking that clay and running it along the entire pottery process, from the raw materials to preparing it for making something like a pot or a dish, to making the glazes with ash from burnt junk wood and burnt industrial materials and logs and stuff that had fallen off the cliff, to firing it in gas or wood-fired kilns, through to enjoying meals of the weird stuff that we had made. This, of course, was free. It's a gift, and it was open to anyone and anything that wanted to enjoy it. And we ran it on friendship and honesty. And you too are also welcome. If you feel like coming here, or if you feel like doing it where you are, I will come to you.
And in a similar vein, the Katamari cart is a type of design process and team melting exercise where a large public sculpture is built on a set of wheels like a trailer or a cart from junk materials that are found all over the city, especially in commercial or industrial zones. This process was designed with Rumen Rachev.
Another type of waste or unaccessed resource can be the people and things that are usually left out of the conversation when we talk about designing public spaces or designing for creativity. So we've done some work co-designing with stuff and people that are usually left out. So in this slide you can see we are trying to make a park with students from a local special school who don't get to participate in normal public life. They can't really go to the library or a cafe or any kind of public space without being kicked out, because of course, they are loud and they will say weird things. So in this case, I thought that it would be great if we could work together to make a public space that they could feel proud in and enjoy. It was very difficult and conflict inducing, but I loved it, and I think they enjoyed it. But I think the normal people had a lot of problems, and that's a great point for us to go to the next step. I'm not sure what that next step is though.
Another type of environment where it is very difficult for the people that use it to be active in maintaining and modifying that environment is public school. In New Zealand anyway, this is the case. So as part of our project with the Ministry of Education, we decided to devise a plan where the students would investigate their general environment, come up with ideas on how to fix it or mend it, and then do it themselves and engage with the authorities to try and get things done, using various frugal and sometimes inappropriate and unpredictable materials.
And, of course, we do a lot of making with cats. I would also invite any other living animals or things or non-living things, but it seems like cats are very interested in making together. So I recommend it if you have the opportunity. All of this may sound a little incomprehensible and wild, but I assure you it is fun and valuable, and I will continue it. And if you're interested in talking or playing or doing some project, I am always ready to say yes, and I will do something together. Okay, that's it. I am grateful that you have taken the time to be here with me today. So, thank you very much.